Welcome to Get Real, How to Live a More Authentic Life, with psychologist and author of over 75 books, Dr. Barry Weinhold. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Get Real, How to Live a More Authentic Life with Dr. Barry Weinhold. Dr. Weinhold, how are you today?
Oh, I'm just so grateful today. It's just spring, as summer's here. I get to go outside to my favorite outside venue and go dancing. And my birthday comes up this week, and so I'm anxious to. My kids will be here, and my new friend will be here, so we'll do some celebrating.
Excellent. Congratulations. Happy early birthday.
Yeah.
Looking forward to celebrating that. And very, very, very cool. The warmer weather has been amazing here. As you can tell, I've been working out in the backyard a lot more recently. And yeah, so very, very, very cool. What are we talking about today?
Well, last 2 weeks was the problem. Now I'm going to talk about the solution. What I have found, at least in my work, what really directly deals with the issues I've raised in the last two episodes about the lack of understanding of the whole picture of what causes school shootings in terms of the school climate and the fact that a lot of times the school climate is very negative and full of put downs, bullying, and things that really are the bread and butter of school violence. And those can lead, and often do lead, to a member of the school who's probably very sensitive to those kind of things and finds no protection from the school, and then tries to take the law into their own hands and buys a gun, starts shooting up the school. So what I did was, I'm a little background. I was working in Czechoslovakia on a project for the United Nations, and people would say, "Well, gee, where are you from in Colorado?" I'd say, "Well, Colorado's." Where are we from in the United States? I say, "Well, I'm from Colorado." And they said, "Oh, that's the hate state." And where are you from in Colorado? And I said, "Colorado Springs." Well, they said, "That's where all the hate started." Well, it turned out that in 1992, the Colorado election passed an amendment to the Constitution that ended up denying gays and lesbians certain rights. And basically, it was promoted by a group here in Colorado Springs called Colorado for Family Values. And they put on all the worst, like worst of the gay pride parades on television. And, basically got everybody afraid. And I think it was 51% voted for the amendment. Well, the amendment was then challenged by a lawsuit, and it went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, where it was declared unconstitutional. So it never was went into effect, but the damage was done. And particularly in Colorado Springs, when I got back in the spring of '93, I found that it wasn't the same community I had left. There was a lot more anger and hatred in the air, and the media was basically making money off of this. And there were two groups in town: the Colorado for Family Values, another group called Citizens Project, that was wanting to basically educate people out of their fears. And so this group continued even after the amendment passed, and was in the court system. They continued to fire salvos in the media at each other. And each of them thought they were right. And, when you get righteous indignation and anger, it gets pretty ugly. And so when I came back, I said, I'm going to go and talk to the leaders of both groups, see what they have to say. I said, I'm a trained mediator, and I'd be willing to sit down with you if you were willing to sit down with your adversary here, and let's see if we can find a resolution to this. Neither one was interested. So I basically went to, I knew that something had to happen. And I was inspired by this statement here. I read this book by Sam Keen called Hymns to an Unknown God. Let me read, quote Sam here, because this inspired me to go on. He said, creating a political community based on kindness might seem like an impossibility, but we are discovering lately in American society that we can't build a good society on the principles of self-interest and entitlement alone. Without generosity, there can be no community. Without kindness of strangers, the society is turned into an armed camp, and it's what we're experiencing. The atmosphere of compassion that transforms a mass of alienated individuals into a caring community is created by countless acts of kindness and charitable foresight. That was what inspired me. I said, my God, maybe that's what we need to do to change the atmosphere, the climate of this community, which is adversarial right now and negative. So I went to the local TV station, and my proposal to the news director was, why don't you, basically have more news that's good news instead of the bad news all the time? Why don't you make a concerted effort to intersperse the bad news with some good news? Well, you'd have thought I came up with the dumbest idea in the world. I'd spend the next hour listening to every reason in the world why that wouldn't work, and all the listeners want to hear the bad news. They want to know what's happening if there's a wreck on I-25 or somebody got shot downtown. And so he convinced me that was a dumb idea. Well, my parting shot with him was, well, maybe what you could do, since you have them there for the whole half hour of your news, why don't you end the show with one act of kindness, one positive thing that would make people remember that? Because I know that in a train of things that people are paying attention to, it's the last thing that they get that usually sticks the most. So he said, well, I don't know, maybe we could do that. But we don't know how to reach those people. We don't know how to find the acts of kindness in the community. I said, I can help you with that. I know where to find them. And so I left with somewhat of a discouraged attitude. I thought, this isn't going to go anywhere. They're not going to buy this. But I got lucky. That afternoon on the same television show, and the same station, Oprah Winfrey did her whole show on random acts of kindness. And I mean, it couldn't have been any more of a lucky break. I mean, how would it happen? I was there in the morning talking to about being kind, and then Oprah takes her whole show on kindness. And so he called me back and he said, you may have something here. Let's talk. So that was the beginning of a 5-year media contract to promote kindness in the community. And I enlisted every sector of the community, the churches, the Chamber of Commerce, the economic development, the city council, the other media outlets, the educational institutions, everybody in promoting kindness. And I did that a couple different ways. One of the ways was we had buttons made up. And what we did is, and here's the button, and it says, spread kindness, it's contagious. And you were supposed to wear that button and then catch somebody doing something kind for either you or somebody else. And then give them your button and instruct them that they had to look for somebody else to pass it on to that they caught doing something kind. And so I had 80,000 of these buttons printed up and circulated. I got them out to people at bazaars and festivals and all kinds of public events. I even stood in front of a grocery store and handed them out to people as they came out the grocery store, and with an explanation about what to do with them. And it started to have an effect. My hypothesis was that if I could get 20% of the people in this community focusing their attention on finding something kind, something positive that's going to happen, it would change the consciousness. And lo and behold, that's what happened. The television station did a survey every so often, every year, of for their viewers about what they liked and what they didn't like. And so I said, "Can I add some questions about the kindness campaign in your survey?" "Oh yeah, sure, no problem." So when we got the results back, it blew us away because I think the returns were 70% of those they had sent out. But of that 70%, 75% said the kindness campaign is significantly reducing violence in our community. And we weren't even focusing on violence, we're focusing on kindness. So it totally validated my premise, was that if you focus on positive things, people forget about the negative. And it's also true that the brain can only process one thing at a time. And so if it's a positive thing, it can't process any negative things at the same time. So I had a lot of good research that showed that this was working. And then the people, and I worked with all different groups in the community, neighborhoods, businesses, large and small, nonprofits, and and then the school said, "Hey, we could use this. Can you do anything for help us? Because we got a lot of unkindness in our school." And I started visiting schools and validating what they were saying. And so I put together a manual of kind of classroom and all school activities that they could use to in their school. And that was working. I had over 100 schools participating locally. And but then about mid-year, they kept calling me and say, "Hey, we're running out of ideas. Can't you come up with some um, program guide that would carry us through the whole year?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I have an idea how to do that." So I contacted all 100 schools that were already in the program. And I said, "Send me the activities you've done in your school that have been the most successful." And they did. They sent them to me. And I put together like a cookbook. And I had over 300 activities that had already been proven to be successful in one school or another. And underneath at the bottom, I put the person who contributed this. So I was editing this, and writing it and including the contributions of all the people in the schools that had given me uh, successful activities that worked in their school. So I knew that every activity in that manual had been field tested already. I didn't have to field test any of it. It was already been shown to be successful. And so that helped that problem. It carried them through the end of the year. And so I began to then think about, okay, if I'm going to change the school climate from a negative one to a positive one, what are the things that really need to happen? What are the interventions that need to happen in the school? So Ben put up that chart on the interventions. But wait a minute. Also before you do that, put up the I've been talking about the program, and put up the covers of the program guides so people see what they are. There's number one, which is implementing a kind and safe school initiative. And mostly number one, back to one just for a minute. I want to say a little more about one. And this one is because I ended up exporting this to other cities and other schools in other cities. And so I had to travel a lot. And I thought, well, maybe the best thing to do is put a manual together with a step-by-step process about how to implement the program in your schools. And so that's what this manual is. It's a step-by-step process of the best practices that I found in the communities that implemented in their schools. So it's and then number two were the 300 activities that I basically created to help basically change the climate of the school. And then number three was, oh, that's number one, isn't it? Uh, you have number three, Ben? Basically, number three is how to evaluate it, what to do to evaluate the. Apparently, you didn't have number three, but anyway, that's what number three is about. And this package is available on my website for virtually nothing. And when you buy the package, you have my permission to make as many copies of it as you want to. So if you want to give a copy of this to every teacher in your building or every teacher in your district, you can do that on your own with no charge. So it's a very easy to use, easy to implement kind of program. So back to the list again of the 5 interventions. So anyway, what I found was, as I mentioned, the kindness activities were for classrooms. They were all, some of them were all school activities, or some of them could be done in small counseling groups. But there was 300 plus activities that would get them through the whole year, and uh, and then I also added a section on character education and cooperative learning, because one of the things that I see I've seen is part of the problem of why school climates turn more negative is, well, first of all, they focus on the negative, and mostly the competitive grading system always has that kind of element in it, that you're focusing on the mistakes that people made that caused them to get a lower grade. And so it seemed to me that we needed to balance the competitive nature of the school climate with more cooperative learning activities in the classroom and in the school. So I found a bunch of them in different places, and designed the ones I thought would work the best. And character education seemed to be a part of it. I mean, basically helping people understand and be more compassionate towards each other, and build character traits that would support that. So that was another intervention, and those were mostly classroom activities. There were a few all school activities, but mostly that was in the trenches in the classroom. Then, in addition to that, in almost all the schools, even elementary schools, I helped create a peer counseling program, or maybe call it a peer mediation program, where we trained a group of students, usually the upperclassmen, to kind of watch out in the cafeteria and the halls and wherever students were gathered, to see if there were kind of the festering of problems and conflicts that weren't getting resolved, and to be able to intervene effectively. And we taught them how to do that. We supervised them, and in some schools, it was a highly successful effort. And the amount of student to student disputes and anger and fights and things dropped significantly because of the peer counseling intervention. Then I also created a curriculum which allowed me to teach, or whoever was in the school to teach a semester-long conflict resolution students class for all students. And basically, that was a way of really building a skill set into the school to basically involve everybody in conflict resolution. Because the biggest reason why bullying and put downs continue is not the bulliers or the people who are put down. It's the bystanders who do nothing. And that's the target I tried to reach with this number four. I tried to reach them with giving them skills so that they could intervene or could resolve any conflicts they had in a peaceful way. And the research on that's very clear, that when students are taught conflict resolution skills, the amount of fighting, the amount of disputes goes down significantly and is reduced sometimes to nothing in schools. So that one was a key part of a key intervention in the schools. And the last one was really looking at restorative justice. And restorative justice is a fairly new concept, but it really builds on the idea that the most important thing in any kind of conflict or any kind of dispute is to be able to restore some kind of normal relationships with the people involved. And obviously in schools, it was a perfect match because two kids get into a fight and they get sent to the office, they get disciplined, but then they go back to the classroom and there they are sitting side by side again. And the tendency to want to do it again and is often there. And so in restorative justice, they basically bring the people together that are involved in any dispute, and they look for a way to find common ground. They look for a way to restore the relationship again to the two people. What kinds of acts, what kind of things has to happen? I remember one kind of classic example of restorative justice was this band was practicing after school for a concert they were going to give. And the band director, they were keeping them late over the dinner hour. And so the band director ordered pizza for everybody. When they were finished, they would all have pizza. Well, I was sitting outside the band room while they were still finishing, and these two boys came by and they said, "Oh boy, some free pizza." So they grabbed the pizza and ran and ate the pizzas. Not all of them, they couldn't eat all of them, but they ate most of them. And of course, then they got caught. Well, under a reputative justice system, they would have been immediately suspended. They would have been basically not able to do anything to restore any goodwill in that situation. So they put them together in a meeting room, the band director, some of the band members, and the two boys that did this. And the two boys were really pretty contrite about that. They realized they made a mistake. And so what they basically agreed to is that the boys would supply the pizzas that they took at their own expense and treat the band members to a pizza party. And that was the way to resolve it. After that, it was everybody felt great about it. And so in many areas of discipline in schools, the focus is mostly on punishing people, mostly on, looking at the things they did to violate the rules of the school and making sure they don't do it again by putting them on detention, suspending them, or expelling them. And those are the three main weapons that they used to try to correct this problem. But none of that was working. It just did not reach the problem the way it needed to. And so the issue had to be one of figuring out some other way to restore the relationship between the offender and the offended, so that did not lead to any further kind of offenses. And restorative justice has a great track record of doing that. They have a lot of processes that they use that are very effective to get people face to face and taking responsibility for what they did and finding some way to make restitution or in some way to resolve and restore the relationships they had. So those are and believe it or not, that fifth one is the hardest one to implement in schools. The schools are so in love with their reputative justice system. I remember I sat in a faculty meeting once and the principal was talking about this one boy that had caused a lot of problem in the schools. And they said, well, we put him on detention and that didn't work. Then we suspended him and that didn't work. And then we ended up expelling him from the school. That didn't really solve the problem. And this one teacher raised his hand. He said, it looks like what we're doing is we're putting a big red letter on the middle of the forehead, the big A for adulterous in that famous novel about that. And we're not solving any problems. And so that was a great lead in for me to step up to the faculty meeting and talk about what I was planning to do, which was an alternative to that. And the faculty was ready for it. It was good timing. So anyway, Ben, those are my comments about this program. And
did we want to show the pledge?
Huh? Oh yeah.
Did we want to show the purple hand?
This is one of the kindest activities that had the most effect. Is in a number of schools they cut out purple hands, And what they did was they asked everyone in the school to take the Purple Hands Pledge. And here it is. You are invited and encouraged to join us in helping sow the seeds of peace everywhere. Share the vision and you will make a difference. The Purple Hands Pledge is designed to help people of all ages pay attention to the things they say and do to themselves and others that cause harm or pain. It is also about paying attention to what others are saying and doing to us and asking for help if we needed, if they are saying and doing things to us that are hurting us. And the pledge then, they write this on their hands and they post this on a wall in the cafeteria. I will not use my hands or my words for hurting myself and others. And then, so that was posted in the cafeteria wall for everyone to see, and everybody in the school eventually would take the pledge. And
Awesome.
that was a great intervention.
I love that. So all of these resources, once again, are available at circle.org in the link in the description?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Weinhold. Another amazing episode. What do we have in store for our final show on this topic next week?
The final show is, did it work? So I'm going to talk about the research and evaluation process that we went through. And there's some interesting stuff on there. I mean, it was not hard to get results, and I'll show how easy it is to find out. I'll show. I think we had 12 or 14 different criteria that we evaluated the program on. So that's what I talk about.
Excellent. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Click the link in the description for more information on everything that Dr. Weinhold does and everything that we talked about in this episode and every episode so far on this show. That's been Get Real with Dr. Barry Weinhold. My name is Ben Barber. Bye for now, everybody.
Bye, Ben.
For more information, please visit the Colorado Institute for Conflict Resolution and Creative Leadership at CICRCL.org or click the link in the show notes.